McLaren responds to statements of unfairness with a stark warning. Verstappen's performance makes Red Bull question car development, and one driver is dangerously close to a race ban. What if I told you that one radio message at the Italian Grand Prix might have changed the entire course of McLaren's season? At Monza, we saw tension, strategy, and a controversial call from the pit wall that left fans divided. Today, we're diving deep into Andrea Stella's response to those McLaren team orders, and why they might not be as simple as they first appeared. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see that this wasn't just a team order. It was a chess move that reveals McLaren's entire Formula One philosophy. Monza, the temple of speed, a track where slipstream battles and top speed rule everything. McLaren had both cars running strong. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were in the thick of it, fighting wheel to wheel, and pushing their papaya machines to the absolute limit. Fans were on the edge of their seats as the two young drivers got dangerously close. And then it happened. A calm but decisive team radio message. Oscar, hold position. It was McLaren's call to avoid their drivers clashing, and instantly the debate exploded. Was this protecting the team, or was it robbing Piastri of a chance at glory? Let's be honest, nobody likes team orders. As fans, we want to see pure racing, no politics, no restrictions. The sight of a faster car being told to hold back feels wrong. It feels like we're being cheated out of what we came for. Racing at its rawest. That's exactly why so many fans were furious after Monza. Oscar Piastri looked fast, he looked hungry, and many believe McLaren should have let him fight it out with Lando Norris. But Andrea Stella, McLaren's team principal, doesn't see it that way. In fact, his explanation flips the entire situation on its head. After the race, Stella defended the call. He explained that the team order wasn't about favoritism. It wasn't about holding Piastri back. Instead, it was about protecting McLaren's bigger picture. Stella said, "We wanted to make sure both cars scored the maximum points without risking an accident." Think about it. Two young, ambitious drivers, both desperate to prove themselves, racing at one of the fastest tracks on the calendar. One mistake, one wheel-to-wheel clash, and both McLarens could have ended in the gravel. From Stella's perspective, it wasn't about picking a winner. It was about avoiding a double loser. Now let's pause here, because this is where psychology comes in. Humans are wired to hate fairness violations. When we see one person held back for the benefit of another, it triggers something deep in our brains. It feels unjust, and we instantly want to defend the underdog. That's why fans instantly sided with Piastri. They felt his chance was stolen. But Stella tapped into another powerful principle of psychology. Loss aversion. People fear losing more than they value gaining. For McLaren, the fear of losing both cars in a crash outweighed the reward of letting them fight for a higher finish. In other words, Stella wasn't thinking about who should win. He was thinking about what can't we afford to lose. And here's where it gets even more interesting. McLaren's fight isn't just against itself, it's against Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes. Every single point matters in the Constructors' Championship. A crash between Norris and Piastri wouldn't just have been embarrassing, it would have been catastrophic for their season. Andrea Stella is building a culture at McLaren, a culture of discipline, strategy, and long-term thinking. His decision at Monza wasn't about this race, it was about setting the tone for the future. By telling Piastri to hold position, Stella sent a clear message. McLaren comes before the individual. Now, let's talk about Norris and Piastri. To their credit, both drivers respected the order, but don't be fooled. Underneath those helmets, emotions were running high. Drivers are competitors, they live for the fight. They want to prove they're the faster one. And that sets up an intriguing question. How long will Piastri be willing to play second fiddle? And how long before Norris feels his leadership inside McLaren is under threat? These are young, ambitious drivers. Eventually, something has to give. The reaction online tells the whole story. Half the fans argued that Stella was right, that team orders are a necessary evil in Formula One. The other half, they were furious. They wanted the raw, unfiltered spectacle of two McLarens battling it out. This divide is what makes Formula One so fascinating. It's not just about cars on a track, it's about strategy, politics, emotions, and philosophies colliding at 200 miles per hour. So, what can we take away from this? Team orders will always be controversial. No matter how logical, they will always feel wrong to fans. McLaren is thinking long-term. Stella is playing chess, not checkers, and the Norris and Piastri rivalry is only just beginning. If Monza was a preview, the fireworks are yet to come. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, the man who defined a generation of Formula One. But in 2025, something unusual happened. After leaving Mercedes for Ferrari, the dream quickly turned into one of the toughest challenges of his career. No podiums for 14 races, public frustration, even calling himself useless. And yet, instead of breaking, Hamilton has drawn what he calls a line in the sand. He says it's time to reset, to rediscover the love of racing. Today we're diving deep into that moment, what it means and why it matters not just in Formula One, but in life. Imagine being at the absolute top of your game. You've won more races than anyone in history. You've tied Michael Schumacher's record of 7 world titles, and then you make a bold move. You leave Mercedes, the team that brought you so much success, to join Ferrari, the most iconic brand in Formula One, a team whose history drips with passion, glory, and expectation. The pressure is enormous, the eyes of the world are on you, and yet the results don't come. Instead of victory laps, there's disappointment. Instead of celebration, there's criticism. For Hamilton, the thrill began to fade. This season, the cracks showed. After a string of tough weekends, Hamilton qualified 12th in Hungary and didn't score a podium. In a moment of raw frustration, he described himself as useless, even suggesting Ferrari should replace him. Words you don't expect from a legend. But those words didn't come from weakness. They came from honesty, from being human. And that honesty sets the stage for something powerful. Right before the Dutch Grand Prix, Hamilton drew his line in the sand. He said, "We have to keep going, even when it's difficult. We must remember why we're here, that we love what we do." He talked about the need to start enjoying himself again. This wasn't just about racing, it was about reclaiming joy, about shifting the focus from external pressure back to internal love. That's what makes this moment so fascinating. Psychologists often say that when motivation fades, the key is to reconnect with intrinsic joy, the love for the craft itself. For Hamilton, that joy was getting buried under Ferrari's massive expectations, sponsorship obligations, media noise, and relentless scrutiny. Drawing a line in the sand was his way of saying, "Enough. I refuse to let this pressure steal my passion. I'm choosing to reset, to focus on fun again." And in doing so, he turned vulnerability into strength. Not everyone saw his earlier frustration as a weakness. George Russell, his former teammate, defended him, saying the comments came after an emotional day and don't define his ability. Russell pointed out Hamilton's sprint race win in China as proof that he still has what it takes. One tough season doesn't erase 2 decades of excellence, but what it does do is test character. And that's exactly what we're seeing now, because Ferrari is not an easy place to be. The pressure is unlike anywhere else. The expectations of the fans, the media, the sponsors, it's relentless. Add to that the challenge of adapting after 12 years at Mercedes, and you can see why Hamilton described the experience as overwhelming. Even former drivers have claimed that much of Ferrari's staff didn't want him there in the first place, suggesting his move was commercial, not sporting. Whether or not that's true, those narratives weigh heavily on any athlete, and yet despite the noise, Hamilton refuses to quit. He's reframing the story. Instead of focusing on the setbacks, he's choosing to focus on joy. That shift in perspective is powerful, because emotions drive performance. When we feel weighed down, our energy drops, our creativity fades, but when we reconnect with passion, everything changes. That's the psychology Hamilton is tapping into now. So why should this matter to us? Because what Hamilton is experiencing is universal. We've all faced moments where the joy disappears, where pressure replaces passion, where we feel useless. The lesson here is that sometimes you need to stop, draw a line in the sand, and reset. You need to remind yourself why you started, to strip away the noise and rediscover the fun. That's not weakness, that's strength, and that's how comebacks begin. This story also reminds us that vulnerability can be inspiring. Too often we expect our heroes to be flawless, but perfection doesn't inspire. Struggle does. When Hamilton admits he's not having fun, we connect with him. When he vows to fight back, we believe in him. That authenticity makes his journey more powerful than any statistic ever could. So where does Hamilton go from here? No one knows for sure. Maybe Ferrari finds the breakthrough they've been chasing. Maybe podiums return. Maybe he fights for that record-breaking 8th world title. Or maybe not. But what matters right now is the mindset. By drawing that line in the sand, Hamilton has already taken control of his story. He's chosen to define his season not by frustration, but by resilience. And that, in itself, is a victory. So what can you take from this? 3 things. First, emotional honesty breaks the spell. Don't be afraid to admit when you're struggling. Second, framing a setback as a pivot is a powerful tool. Draw your own line in the sand and choose how you'll move forward. Third, resilience is contagious. By fighting back, you inspire others to do the same. Lewis Hamilton's season with Ferrari may not be the fairy tale many expected, but maybe, just maybe, this chapter will become the most important of his career. Because it's in struggle that character is forged, and it's in moments like these that legends are truly defined. Imagine kicking off your race from 10th on the grid. You slice through the pack, overtaking cars left and right. But despite a brilliant drive, you finish 6th. And then you realize a podium was almost within reach. This was Lewis Hamilton's Italian Grand Prix with Ferrari. Today we're breaking down the strategic misstep that may have cost him 5th place at Monza. Hamilton started the race in 10th after serving a grid penalty carried over from Zandvoort. From the very first lap he was on the charge, climbing into the top 6 and even staying close to George Russell in the Mercedes. It was a strong comeback, especially in front of the Ferrari fans at Monza, who were hoping to see him deliver a big result. But then came the moment that changed everything. Russell pitted around lap 27. Ferrari, however, kept Hamilton out on older tyres for 11 more laps before finally bringing him in. By the time Hamilton rejoined, Russell had built a comfortable buffer and Hamilton was stuck behind slower cars like Ocon and Stroll. The undercut window had slammed shut. Hamilton finished just 4.5 seconds behind Russell. That meant Ferrari had lost a real opportunity to leapfrog Mercedes with a simple strategy call. After the race, Hamilton said it himself, "We missed that opportunity. I was 1.5 seconds behind George and we should have tried to undercut." And it wasn't just about numbers. This was Hamilton's first home race at Monza in Ferrari red. The atmosphere was electric. The Tifosi wanted to see a fight to the finish. And while Hamilton gave everything on track, strategy left him short of what could have been a podium push. Team principal Fred Vasseur still praised Hamilton's performance. He said Lewis was back on the pace, delivered a solid first stint, and looked more comfortable in the car than he had in weeks. Hamilton agreed. He said, "I definitely felt on top of the car today. I had a really good launch and got close to George, but going long just didn't pay off. That's something we'll learn from. So why was the undercut so important? In a one-stop race like Monza, timing is everything. An undercut, pitting earlier to take advantage of fresh tyres, forces your rival to respond. By waiting too long, Ferrari let Russell control the pace. It's the psychology of racing strategy. If you give your opponent the initiative, you're always playing catch-up. And as every driver knows, the pain of losing a position you could have had is sharper than the joy of simply holding your ground. And the bigger picture? Leclerc finished 4th, which means he extended his lead over Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship to 46 points. Ferrari missed a chance at a double top 5 finish at home. Instead, Verstappen dominated for Red Bull. McLaren locked in a double podium, and Ferrari were left wondering what could have been. Still, there are positives. Hamilton's pace was strong. His confidence in the Ferrari is growing, and he left Monza saying he felt more comfortable than at any other point this season. That's crucial, because next up is Baku. It's a tricky track, but if Hamilton continues building this rhythm, the story could look very different in the races to come. So here's the big question. Did Ferrari's strategy call cost Hamilton a chance at P5, maybe even more? Or was this just part of the learning curve between a new driver and his team? Let me know what you think in the comments. What if I told you that one Formula One driver is just 2 penalty points away from being banned from racing? That's not speculation. That's the reality after the chaos of the Italian Grand Prix. Today, we're diving into the drama, the FIA's punishments, and what this means for one of F1's most talked about young drivers. Stay with me, because the twist in this story will shock you. Monza, the temple of speed, a race where legends are made, and sometimes where careers stumble. Among all the noise, the cheers, and the heartbreaks, the FIA handed out punishments that could change the trajectory of the season. And right at the center of it all is Oliver Bearman. Bearman, the rookie who turned heads earlier this year when he replaced Carlos Sainz at Ferrari and delivered a performance that stunned the paddock. But now, the headlines are very different. So how does a driver go from being celebrated as Ferrari's next golden boy to standing on the brink of a race ban? To understand that, we need to look at the FIA's penalty system. In Formula One, mistakes don't just cost you track position, they haunt you long after the checkered flag. Every driver carries a license with 12 penalty points available. Each time they commit an infraction, whether it's blocking another car, unsafe driving, or causing a collision, the FIA adds points to their record. If a driver racks up all 12 points within a 12-month period, they're banned for an entire race weekend. No practice, no qualifying, no Grand Prix. Imagine the stakes. An entire weekend of racing gone. No points, no glory, just humiliation. Now, Oliver Bearman finds himself sitting at 10 penalty points, just 2 away from disaster. At Monza he was punished again, this time for weaving on the straights while defending. It may have looked like hard racing to fans, but to the FIA, it was a dangerous move. And that was enough to push him closer to the cliff edge. Think about the pressure here. You're 19 years old. You've already shocked the world by driving a Ferrari on debut. You're racing against world champions like Hamilton, Verstappen, and Alonso. And every tiny mistake could not only ruin your race, but your reputation. Bearman isn't just fighting the stopwatch anymore. He's fighting a system that's keeping score, waiting for him to slip. But here's the real kicker. If he picks up just 2 more penalty points, he'll be banned from a race. So what does that mean for his career and for the teams watching him closely? The Italian Grand Prix wasn't just about Bearman. The FIA dished out punishments across the field. Incidents ranged from unsafe releases to aggressive defending. While most drivers escaped with warnings, Bearman's record is starting to look like a ticking time bomb. It raises a bigger question. Are the FIA being too harsh on young drivers, or is Bearman simply pushing the limits too far? Should we admire Bearman for his aggressive, fearless style, or criticize him for recklessness that could cost him dearly? Because history shows us that Formula One doesn't forgive easily. Drivers who rack up penalties get labeled as dangerous, and once that reputation sticks, it's hard to shake off. We've seen it before. Romain Grosjean, back in 2012, was banned for one race after causing a massive crash at Spa. It haunted him for years, and now Bearman is walking that same tightrope. One wrong move, one split-second misjudgment, and he could be watching the race from his couch instead of the cockpit. The next few races are critical. Will Bearman learn to tame his aggressive instincts, or will his ambition push him over the edge? The spotlight is brighter than ever, and the FIA's watchful eyes are waiting. Remember at the start, I told you one driver is just 2 points away from a ban. Now you know. It's Oliver Bearman. But the bigger story is this. In Formula One, glory and disaster are separated by the smallest margins. One bold overtake can make you a hero. One careless weave can make you a villain. For Bearman, the path ahead is clear but brutal. He must prove that he's not just a fast driver, but a smart one. Formula One doesn't just reward speed, it punishes mistakes. And in this sport, reputations are built and destroyed in the blink of an eye. So what do you think? Is the FIA being too strict on Bearman, or does he need to take responsibility for his risky driving? Let me know in the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Today we're diving into the dramatic team order showdown at the Italian Grand Prix, where McLaren's decision sparked controversy, championship intrigue, and intense fan reactions. I'm your name, and in the next few minutes you're going to relive those tension-filled moments from Monza and see why one decision changed the race entirely. Picture this, Lando Norris, comfortably leading the race, suddenly slowed by a pit stop that went wrong, completely out of his control. Behind him, his teammate Oscar Piastri was faster out of the pits. McLaren then makes a bold decision. Piastri let Norris through. Piastri responds calmly, "If you really want me to, I'll do it." The drama, tension, and fan reaction were unforgettable. But was it fair? Stay tuned, because we're breaking it all down. At the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, Max Verstappen took a commanding win, setting the fastest race on record with an average speed over 250 km/h. Behind him, McLaren was on track for a strong second and third place finish, with Norris leading for most of the race. But a slow tyre change added crucial seconds, allowing Piastri to jump ahead temporarily. That moment set the stage for one of the most talked about team orders in recent Formula One history. A split-second decision now had the potential to alter not just positions but team dynamics and fan perception. And here's where the drama truly ignited. McLaren radioed Piastri to let Norris pass. Piastri, calm but firm, replied, "A slow pit stop was part of racing, but if you really want me to, I'll do it." Moments later, Norris added, "It's not my decision. We decided as a team, it was out of my control." The team principal emphasized that the move wasn't just about fairness, it was about staying consistent with team principles. McLaren had to balance driver morale, team strategy, and the optics of the decision. But was it simply fair play, or did it set a precedent for future races? Oscar Piastri handled it with professionalism, calling the decision fair and stressing the importance of teamwork. He made it clear that Norris had led most of the race, and that the pit stop issue was not anyone's fault. Norris mirrored that sentiment, saying, "If it were the other way around, we would have done the same. It's the most fair way." He also pushed back against claims of setting a precedent, adding, "Every situation is different. It's unwise to assume this will always happen." Even rival teams noticed. The incident sparked discussion about how team orders should be handled in Formula One, showing the fine line between fairness, strategy, and driver autonomy. Fans were divided. Some applauded McLaren's team-first approach, while others felt Piastri should have raced for the position. The podium atmosphere was tense, showing just how emotionally invested fans are in these decisions. Meanwhile, Verstappen, watching from his lead, joked over team radio, adding a layer of light-hearted drama to the tense situation. This incident perfectly illustrates the friction in Formula One between team strategy and individual driver ambition. While McLaren's principles encourage fair racing, pragmatic decisions can sometimes override ideology in the heat of the moment. Let's break down why this keeps us glued to the screen. There's natural tension between teammates, fairness versus strategy, and fan expectations. Conflict is inherently engaging. Will Piastri stand his ground or obey? Curiosity keeps us watching. Real driver reactions make the drama feel genuine and emotionally resonant. Fan reactions and rival comments create a sense of shared experience, making viewers feel part of the conversation. So what happened in Monza wasn't just a race, it was a story of split-second decisions, ethics, and strategy. Fairness isn't always obvious. Even ideals can be adjusted for strategy. Context is everything. This situation was unique. Fan emotion matters, public reaction can influence team decisions and fuel ongoing narratives. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was McLaren right to intervene, or did they cross a line? Hit the like button if you love Formula One drama, subscribe for more race breakdowns, and comment your verdict, Team Piastri or Team Norris. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep racing in your heart.